Hello there, sword friends. Today I am going to do a supplemental bit of information about the Albion Alexandria, and I've already reviewed this sword. This one is the one right here that I reviewed in the review where I reviewed it. Basically, it's an Albion Alexandria. Not much has changed in this sword other than I have cleaned it up a little bit and have removed the coin from the pommel and remeasured the weight. Both of them are very, very similar. Now, Albion, as is kind of widely known, I suppose, is made on a CNC mill and then kind of finished up by hand. But that might make you think they're a lot closer to what is advertised, or a lot more, consistent in their execution of the blades and would have less variation. And that's true, honestly. In my experience, I've had very few examples where they are the same, but generally speaking, they're pretty close to what is advertised. But there is some degree of variation, and I'm going to attempt to share that with you here now with a chart and some data and boring stuff. And I haven't gone as far as to do the weapon dynamics computer difference between the two because I'm just running out of time, and I clean the blades up and I would have to get them all full of fingerprints and things like that to do that, and I just don't want to. What I do find interesting, though, if you listen to my rambly bits of comparison, is one of them, this one, is 3 pounds 10 ounces. Well, this one is 3 pounds 8.2 ounces. So there's nearly a 2 ounce difference in weight, and you can feel it ever so slightly, though. It's not as though I'm holding a wildly different sword in my hand, which is kind of surprising because 2 ounces, while it might not seem like a lot, can be a lot on the sword. I just can't figure out where. There is a marginal difference between the two, and the lighter one is actually a little bit wider, but it's not that much difference in terms of thickness, and it's not that much difference in terms of the taper or profile, and so I really don't know where the weight is hiding, because the pommel seems the same, the grip seems the same, the guard seems the same. So much about them is the same that I can't really figure out where the extra weight went. Now, very often as I compare katanas, and well, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but very often as I do compare other manufacturers' swords, it happens to be katanas where I've had specifically the Hanwei bamboo mat a number of times, and the variation between them can be as much as 10 ounces, just in the blade by itself, or maybe a little bit less than that, but ballpark. And you can kind of see where, because there's a difference in curvature and thickness, and you can kind of see, or at least get an idea where the weight is hiding, and I don't really see it in these two swords. I grant that I've only measured in a couple spots, but they seem to have very consistent or very similar taper, very similar profile, very similar distal taper. The fittings seem to be the same. I guess I just don't know where those 2 ounces are hiding. How does it compare in terms of dynamics? Well, it would be more helpful if I made the weapon dynamics computer for you. I'm not sure, honestly, how many people actually look at that, but as I noted, I don't want to because they're clean right now and I don't want to get them all handsy again. Long and the short of it, though, I do, if I close my eyes and move them around, and granted, I've done an exercise where I set them down and I pick one up one at a time and kind of do some brief motions with it. The heavier sword does feel marginally different to recover, and the lighter sword feels a little bit more agile to recover. I can notice that I can pop the tip up with a little less force. I'm banging the quillins into things. Anyway, I do notice a very slight difference, but honestly, it's not as big as I would expect, not for 2 ounces. And I don't know if that means that those 2 ounces are spread very evenly across the blade, and that's why I can't detect them. I'm not entirely sure, but the purpose of this video would be to show 2 Albion Alexandria swords and show that Albions do, in fact, have some degree of variation, though if you were suspecting that it is a lot, well, 2 ounces is not necessarily nothing. They do a good job of at least preserving the spirit of what the sword is supposed to do. The balance point is very similar between the two, despite the fact that they have different weights. The profile in terms of how one moves versus the other, while it's distinguishable, you really have to have them side by side to compare, and even then, I don't know which one I prefer. So anyway, there we go. 2 Albion Alexandrias, 2 sets of measurements, and hopefully if you're interested in buying either of these, it gives you more confidence that you will get something closer to what is advertised than not. Anyway, that's all I have. If you have any questions about these swords, please let me know, especially in the not too distant future. I cleaned them up because honestly, I don't really need them anymore. I've got some changes going on around the house, and I basically need to reduce the size of my collection somewhat. And these two, well, I really like the Type 18 profile, this big, wide, meaty cutter. I don't really use them for anything but a showpiece, and so I'm ready to move on and maybe have a chance at collecting something different. Anyway, these are 2 Albion Alexandrias. For the moment, I still have them in hand. For the moment, I can still do some sort of comparison between them in terms of weights. So long as your questions are more on the measurement, theoretical, don't get them dirty or break them kind of questions, I can probably answer them, at least while I still have them. Anyway, that's all I've got As always, cheers, and thanks for watching.